Hey, is that me live? Just digging in my nose. Is that what happened right there? That's so awesome. Here, let me do it again. Hold on. Got some bugs there, people. You know how it is. I'm not the only one who gets boogers, people. Um, Hi. How's everybody doing? Just a quick chat. There's been this whole kind of little conversation going on, and it's really hard to talk about things in a forum like Twitter or whatever other bullshit thing where you get 16 characters by the time everybody you want to talk to is listed in the thing. That's maybe something that they should come up with, that when you're talking to a group of people, the at so and so doesn't count as part of the character count, so you still get the whatever it is, 145 characters or whatever the fuck the number is. I also saw a show last night, actually a really good one. Wonky Ninja had talked about him going live with some friends of his, and I guess the show is normally just about what new comics are coming out, but when I came in, there was a whole bunch of talk about the big new outrage, the newest thing, and it was actually a really interesting discussion. They were all, for the most part, they thought it was ridiculous, and I don't totally agree with them. I just thought it was really interesting because the way that they talked about it was amazing. I really have to hand it to all of those guys on the show, and it's not a lot of people that I know. Actually, the only people I knew were J-Rocks and Wonky Ninja. But I thought the discussion was really amazing, and I really have to hand it to them. And in that respect, I wish I could remember the name of the show. Hey, Rez, how's it going? But I just can't remember the name of the show off the top of my head. But if you know Wonky Ninja, you probably know the show already. So anyway, the discussion there was about the Iron Man cover, and then the discussion on Twitter today was about the Iron Man cover and all this kind of stuff. So I just wanted to kind of add my 2 cents, and then that'll be it. I swear to you, that's all. So I guess maybe the first thing that we should do is a screen share, and together we'll look at the offending cover. So how do I get rid of this thing? Okay, so I think that you are screen sharing. Present to everyone. Okay. Okay, so I think that's working. Tell me if it's not working. So this is the cover in question. First thing to me is I don't know anything about the character. I don't really give a shit about I don't give a shit about Iron Man. I don't really care too much about many of the Marvel titles. So I guess this is the big thing, right? Like, this is the thing. This is the cover that people think is too sexy. I don't know. I guess I don't see it. So first of all, I guess it's in a couple of things here. So apparently the character is 15 years old, and apparently that's the issue, that they feel that this is sexualizing a 15-year-old. It's a little odd that she would have this body image, I guess. Would it stand out to me on the stands? Not at all, because I don't know. I guess my main complaint about the whole thing, and it's not really a complaint, I guess my main comment about the whole thing is that how are women represented in comics in general? It just seems odd to me to now draw the line at this. I guess it's weird enough to sexualize a 15-year-old, even though that's not what I see here. I see a girl with some attitude, and she's kind of standing with her butt hanging out, and she's got low riding pants and a belly shirt. Again, it just doesn't look like a lot. It looks like a ton of other comics and a ton of other women represented in mainstream comics. And I think that's a big thing too, that it's kind of mainstream comics. More on that in 1 second. So then this is now the cover that they're going to replace it with. First of all, this I love this style of art a hell of a lot more than I do of the first one. Is it much different than that? Yeah, sure, I guess. I don't know. Again, I think my main problem with the whole thing is that women have always been portrayed a certain way within mainstream comics. If we have an issue with it, we should have an issue with the way people in general are portrayed in a lot of mainstream media. My wife really loves, or loved, she doesn't watch it too much anymore, Law and Order and all those kind of things, the Special Victims Unit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, one of the things that I just can't stomach about those shows is the constant stream of African-American males that are the criminals on those shows. And that's just something that just annoys me, because I know that that's not the reality. It's not a reality that I see here in Winnipeg, especially. Mainstream media often misses the mark by a fucking mile when it comes to representing anybody in the actual real world. Does it bother me? No, it never really has. I still read mainstream comics as much as I read any other independent and indie type stuff. It's just a part of when I choose to engage with any sort of mainstream media, that's always in my mind. I know that I'm not necessarily going to get an original voice if I'm looking into things that are a little more mainstream. That's maybe something that's just me. I don't know. I just know that there's not going to be any sort of forward thinking for the most part in mainstream media. Am I disappointed in that? Fucking rights, I'm disappointed in that. I would love to see mainstream push some more boundaries and not always appeal to the lowest common denominator. But at the end of the day, that's what they're going to do. That's their sole reason of being. They want to kind of talk to the lowest common denominator. And part of me is, should you let that slide? Fuck no. That's not what I'm saying at all. And that's the other side of it. I think that's really important. Like, I may not see the sexualization there. I may not agree that it's an overly sexual image, but that doesn't mean that people who do are completely out to lunch and are social justice warriors and blah, 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 trying to ruin comics, because I don't buy that either. That's a total load of bullshit. If people see something wrong with it, they're completely valid in thinking so. Completely, 100% valid in their thoughts. Just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean that they're out to fucking lunch and I'm right. You know what I mean? And that's, again, I want to make sure that I say this a couple of times. It's something, again, that I really want to say that I appreciated a great deal about the show last night. That I see J-Rocks is here. Whatever show you were on last night, J-Rocks, I just want to really, again, give props to that show, because the way that it was talked about and the way that it was handled there was really great, because they didn't all agree, but the conversation they had around it was really, really interesting. And they were all very well spoken, and I really appreciated that, because nobody was kind of slamming somebody because they believed one way or the other. If you don't like mainstream media, what I've always said is just start digging a little deeper. There is so much out there. If you don't like the way people are being represented in mainstream media, be it from one of many minority groups, from sexual identity, from male versus female, whatever your beef is with mainstream media, find stuff that does speak to you. Bottom line is, don't support the things that you don't want to support. Will the mainstream media eventually go away? Fuck no, it's always going to be there. There's always going to be some jackass who wants to do something in some certain light and is going to appeal to the lowest common denominator. It's just a reality. When it comes to what can be done about it, that's where it gets really difficult. And I think it's kind of been touched on quite a bit, as far as we just look at our kind of social networking now, period. And this, again, was touched on last night. It's so easy to be detached from your personality when you are writing a tweet or posting something on Facebook or posting something on Instagram. Many times, many people say shit they would never say face to face. Many people just use it as a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, even when emails were, I was listening to something on the CBC the other day, and they were kind of going back into the vaults of when computers and the internet and emails were becoming more of a mainstream event, and they were talking about how to write emails for interoffice and specific ways to word things. And when you write an email, don't just send it right away, sit on it. If you're upset about something or you feel passionate about something that you've seen in an email, don't type the first thing that comes to your mind and send it. Type things out to get your thoughts onto the page, but sit with it a little while. Make sure that it's what you want to say. Make sure that that email represents you as a person, as if you were sitting there talking to somebody face to face. I don't think a lot of that happens anymore. So people do see these kind of things and they do just kind of react and then post their opinions, and it just gets out of line. The part that I dislike about the whole thing is that a lot of people are automatically just want to slaughter these people who have these concerns about how people are represented, whether it's from your own kind of ethnic group or if it's from your own gender. There's a long history of women being portrayed a certain way, and that's just the reality. And all these things, whether they're photographs, whether they're advertisements, whether it's a cartoon character, whether it's a comic character, all of these things add to the overall effect of putting that idea out there of this is how X is supposed to be, or this is how this group is supposed to be, this is how this gender is supposed to be. It's always been kind of forefront of my life. My ex-wife is a professor at the university, and she teaches about gender studies and the way that women have been portrayed in advertisements throughout history. And she kind of goes through decades and all the way up to current times. And they do a lot of kind of studies about it, and kind of she does a really big class about it specifically. So it's always been around. It's just now the voices out there that are talking about it have a lot more platforms to kind of voice their dislike for some images. I'm going to take one little quick break here just to kind of see. I see the chat's going wild there. I think that's kind of the crux of it anyway for me. I want to touch on something else a little bit too, but just in one moment. So Rez Reads is here. Hello, Rez. AG Surfer's here. Hello, AG Surfer. The new Iron Girl is sexy. That's a beautiful cover by Jay Scott. AG Surfer says, I've seen worse. I 100% agree with you. I've seen worse as well in the mainstream. And again, that goes back to the whole thing of like, you just look at how women have been portrayed in mainstream comics, period, superhero comics. And then you extrapolate that to a lot of the times it's men that are drawing these. So you're basically have these groups of men that are drawing their kind of fantasies or their pinups or that sort of thing. Then you translate that into the whole real world of comic conventions, and that opens up another can of worms with women who want to identifying with some of the female characters and then dress like them and go to these conventions with a bunch of people that are just really awkward people, period. And just that whole world and how that can mess with you as a young woman or a young man, you know. Rez says she doesn't care about Marvel either. Rez Reed says, I definitely didn't look like that when I was 15, and I completely take back my sexy comment. I feel like a pederast saying that. Yeah, Marvel should try to make these young characters look young. For sure. She definitely does not look 15. I'll give you that. There's nothing in either of those images that tell me that that's a 15-year-old girl. It was funny, one of the comments on the show last night was because they were talking about like, oh, I know 15-year-olds. And I always think it's really funny that for the most part, people who say, oh, I know 15-year-olds and they dress like this, that, and the other thing. Do you have kids? No, I don't have kids. Well, how the fuck do you know? Well, you know, you just do a Google search for 15-year-old girl. It's like, I am not fucking doing a Google search for 15-year-old girls. I'm not sure what you're searching. That was a really funny comment that was kind of mistakenly said last night. That's not what they meant, but it's awesome when they compare fictional characters with reality. And that's a point too that I was kind of trying to touch on. We all know that it's a fictional character. That was something that was said on Twitter today, that it's not a real 15-year-old girl. It's a character. It doesn't matter that it's not a real 15-year-old girl, that it's a character. It is a character that is supposed to portray a 15-year-old girl. It's about setting realistic role models for young people in general, and historically young women specifically have always had very unrealistic role models when it comes to any form of media, when it comes to any form of like movies and TV and that sort of thing, when it comes to comics and cartoons, maybe not cartoons as much, comics. There's always that. Well, I take that back. Actually, cartoons as well. It may not be a image thing, but it's a role that they're supposed to play within society. And I'm noticing that a lot with my daughter now, who loves My Little Pony, loves Strawberry Shortcake, loves Barbie and that sort of thing. And we don't completely deny her that, but we do have conversations about it with her, even though she's 3 years old. There's no time better to start than when they're really young and malleable, I think. But so it doesn't matter that it's a comic book character. It's still a role model that's out there of what a girl at this age should look like. I don't know. I don't know if they have the intent of should look like. The other side of it is that when Marvel hires these artists to do the covers or do the interior art, they're fully aware of what the artist's style is up to that point. They're not bringing in artists that are fresh off the street and don't have portfolios. If you're going to bring in an artist whose style is really kind of the classic cheesecake pinup, and then have them do a cover that everybody gets pissed off about, that then you have to pull, I see that as them kind of playing the fucking game too. It's kind of ridiculous that you would even want to set this up. Either you want to create new voices or you don't. You can't say that you do and then have your actions show something else, which I'll come back to the comments in a section. I just quickly wanted to touch on this. Our comic convention in town, C4, is, to me, a really good example. I wish I would have taken the picture of the poster today, but I didn't. And I can't find the exact one that I've seen online. Your screen sharing, present to everyone. I hope that's coming up there. So basically, the poster that I see in the comic shops doesn't have as much text on it. And it's clear that it's a naked woman who just has the C4 and like a superhero costume painted on her naked body. Again, it's this whole kind of mixed messages, because then on their website, they've got a whole big harassment policy that is, how many pages here? Okay, it's not that many pages, 4 pages or something, 3 pages. And that's, again, it's about sending mixed messages. You're either not wanting to promote a certain type of image or standard, or you can't kind of have it both ways. You can't mix the messages. You know what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense. To me, this is exactly something that kind of mixes the message. And this isn't the first time that they've used this kind of imagery as well. I believe last year was a similar, I think it was a different model, but it might have actually been the same woman. I don't really remember. But similar kind of thing. Comments again. Law and Order is a good show, J-Rock says. Hello, J-Rocks. Again, J-Rocks, I really liked watching you guys last night. Res Reed says, I love Law and Order, and I agree with you about how they always portray blacks as the criminals on those fucking shows. And yes, I completely agree. It's ridiculous to me. And then AG Server says, look at all those actual People magazines and actual teen magazines. Be more concerned about that. For sure, and I think that's part of my point too. It's one of those. I mean, I guess at a certain point there has to be a line in the sand for sure. But unfortunately, it just seems to be the world where everybody wants to share that line in the sand with everybody else. And I'm not saying that flat out that's a bad thing. People are completely entitled to their opinions on shit, and if they think something is bullshit, to call attention to it. There's a lot of things to focus on in our society as far as how a ton of people are being portrayed in kind of mass media. But again, I think it really just ends up going back to my point of it's mainstream mass media. It's all fucking nonsense. If you really want something equality, for the love of God, everybody who may be watching this in the future or now, just please do me a favor. Just dig a little. There's stuff out there. Trust me. There's all sorts of amazing movies out there. There's all sorts of amazing books out there. There's all sorts of amazing music out there. There's all sorts of amazing comics out there that do represent people in a realistic light. It's there. Don't just accept what the mainstream is trying to force feed you. Just don't fucking play their game. Wirtz DB, holy shit. Nice to see you. It's all advertising, man, and I 100% agree with that. That's the other part of it that plays into my you can't have it both ways, and it does feel like Marvel is playing that game a little bit. Hey, let's get this artist to do a cover. It'll cause some controversy. It'll bring attention to our book. People will want to buy the book just because they want to participate in that way, be it good or bad. They don't really care. J-Rock says, not everyone has the same tolerance level, which is also absolutely true. Rez reads, I don't care for mainstream shit, really, and I completely agree with you on that. I'm in a similar boat as you are. Comic books are supposed to be a sense of expression. If you don't like it, don't buy it. And that's a classic thing for sure. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Absolutely. Don't show your support. But at the same time, historically, when things have gone a certain way, I think that it's great that people did voice their opinion. Do people like to voice their opinion a lot these days on every little topic? I think so, but I don't want to stop them from doing that because I think it's important that everybody is allowed to say, hey, this is offensive, this is bullshit, and this is why, you know. Too bad people can't leave stuff alone. Johnny Zero. Hello, Johnny Zero. Drawing their idea of the perfect female body, and that's the thing that I kind of touched on before as far as male fantasy, as far as it's kind of a predominantly male art form, not across the board. Obviously, there's more and more females becoming involved in comics, period, every day, it seems like, which is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's their ideal. And Johnny Zero says conventions are insane for this. Yeah, Google search equals prison, what I was saying before. Yes, hilarious. Rob Wise Guy. Hello, Rob Wise Guy 82. How the hell are you? Johnny Zero says, I don't know what this conversation is all about. Walked in at a weird section, I guess. Oops. I'm losing the thread here. Here we go. Sorry for the silence. I just Googled the cover. I don't get it. It was just a girl in an Iron Man suit, wasn't it? Yeah, I guess, like, and this is my big thing with it too, that, let me see if this will work again here. Let me just, this was the original picture, Johnny Zero, if you're still here, Jay-Z. This was the original picture, and I guess people, you know, fairly busty in the way that she's posing and that sort of thing. I guess that's what people perceived as kind of overly sexual. I just see it as, again, like we already touched on, an unrealistic image of what's supposed to be a 15-year-old girl. But as I already said, if I walked by this cover on the comic book shop, I wouldn't even give it a second look. It's just, it looks like so many other comics out there from the big two companies that it doesn't stand out to me as anything sexual whatsoever. But doesn't mean to say that other people are wrong about it. Big deal because she's 15 years old. GPAP is here. Hello, GPAP. Weren't Destiny's Child like 14 or 15 when they first came up? Possibly. After the Manara cover for Spider-Woman and now this, I think Marvel are definitely playing the game. Not that it makes it okay. Yeah, for sure. And the Manara covers were pretty fantastic. And that's the other thing too. Like, I read some really raunchy shit. It's not like I've never seen porn before. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm against those things. It's just that idea of I don't like it when people who do find things offensive are just kind of like slammed down and just really made to feel like, fuck you, you're ruining comics, this sort of thing. I think that's a ridiculous reaction to have to it. It's completely asinine. They're coming from a place that's justified, I think, even if I may not agree with it. I guess at the end of the day, my whole point was just to say that everybody's allowed to have their opinions about shit. The other funny thing that happened in the show the other day was one of the guys had talked about the new Silver Surfer book and about like, that ain't my Silver Surfer. And I just responded in the comments. They didn't read it or anything. I don't think they did anyway. That I didn't know that you created Silver Surfer. That's amazing. And that sort of idea of that it's your characters and that sort of thing. I don't want to get too much into that side of things. I think that's been talked to death. They're not your fucking characters. You didn't create them. Calm the fuck down. Another thing you find with the ability to get opinions from those whom you wouldn't have normally, for example, people with little knowledge of a situation but feel the need to chime in on it. 100%. That's always going to happen. People who don't know what the fuck they're talking about just jumping on the bandwagon. It's completely right. Johnny Zero says, a bit low riding pants, I guess. Yes, a little bit low riding. Rez says she's never seen porn. Really? Huh. Rez. There's this thing called the internet. You can see 5-minute segments of it as often as you like. Johnny Zero, what kind of chat is this? That's a very good question, Johnny Zero. It just turned longer than I initially had intended. I just wanted to just talk about a bunch of shit for like literally 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden there was 9, 10, 11, 12 people in, so it kind of got a little longer. What would you like to talk about, Jay-Z? Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't have much else to say. I really just wanted to talk about that and how it related to G-Rock says, I will email Rez some porn. For God's sakes, don't do it. Hilarious. Anyway, thank you very much for hanging out for this little moment while I just got it off my chest. I just wanted to say it out loud because, like I said, it was this conversation that was happening on Twitter, and it's really hard to get your thoughts out completely on a platform like that. So I just wanted to talk a whole bunch about it for a very brief time, just so I could get it out there and out of my head and off my mind and kind of move on with the rest of my night. I wish I had something to show you. I don't. I got the new Gord Downie and Jeff Lemire book that they did. I bought 2 copies of that. Someone who may be in this chat currently possibly will be getting a copy of it. I won't mention her name. But I did buy 2 copies just because I think it's for a really good cause. I can go back to having no opinion about Iron Girl. Absolutely. And that's, at the end of the day, was the same for me too. I don't give a shit about the character. I wasn't ever going to buy the comic anyway. I'm certainly not buying it now just because of all this nonsense. But if you don't know the Gord Downie and Lemire book, really, I highly suggest checking it out. A story about a boy who escapes a residential school and dies on the side of the tracks. It's based on a true story that happened to this woman's brother, and she had been talking about it all these years. And Gord Downie, who is the singer of Tragically Hip, who is, if you want to talk Canadian, Tragically Hip is Canadian. That is a Canadian band for sure. I don't know. I think it's a really worthwhile cause. I think he's a pretty incredible guy, even if I'm not a huge fan of his music. I think it's really amazing that a guy who's been diagnosed with this brain cancer and who's kind of like on death's bed did this whole tour that was televised on the CBC as well, as kind of like a final farewell to all the fans, and getting involved in this project, writing a solo album. Each book comes with a download code where you can download his 10-song album that's also on the topic of residential schools and this particular character and a story. I haven't read the whole book yet. I just kind of flipped through it. And he started a charity, so part of the proceeds from the book go to his charity, which goes directly to survivors of the residential school system and starting to bridge the gap between those that have suffered under the residential school system and their families, and kind of trying to start the healing process and conversations. Like, honestly, when I first looked through the book, it nearly brought me to tears just flipping through the book, just knowing about him, and obviously living in Canada and Winnipeg especially has always been a place that people love to trash Winnipeg, whether it's the murder capital of Canada or whatever. Recently, we were voted, whatever the hell that means, the most racist city in Canada. And it's upsetting to me in many levels, but it's also not completely false. We do have a lot of work here to do specifically in Winnipeg, but I think all across Canada we do. I mean, I still know people who flat out deny the residential school system even existed. My parents being two of those people just flat out deny it, that it's just not a thing, period, which is fucking mind-boggling to me, but what are you going to do? So, I mean, even just flipping through the book and all that coming together, it's an amazingly, I don't know, I think it's just such a great thing. I'm really impressed. And like I said, I bought 2 copies immediately. I might go out and buy a couple of more copies. Because it's just one of those things. I really feel it should be sold out, and it's something that I'm going to feel free to just give away to people and send to people, no matter where you live. Just because I think it's an important story and an important part of our history here in Canada that we need to just face up to and just start dealing with in a healthy way, and trying to open up those conversations with people. I saw the solicit for that. I'm considering ordering it. I would say order it for sure there, Rob Wise Guy. And if you have problems ordering it, just let me know, and I will be glad to help out anybody who wants a copy. I will be more than glad to go down to my bookstore, because every bookstore in Winnipeg has multiple copies of it, including our own local bookstore. McNally Robinson has a ton of copies of it. So I'd be glad to go and pick up books for anybody who can't find it online or doesn't want to pay the shipping, because I will be glad to ship it out to you as well. No cost to yourself. I have no problem doing that. Oh, and then Rez was saying, I talked about the Jeff Lemire book on me and JT's show. So that was today, Rez, right? Because I saw that I had missed it while I was at work. I'll have to look that up for sure. I'll have to watch that. And then J Rocks, I thought only white people lived in Canada. It's just the snow. It makes us all look white. Los Angeles is the same, he says. And then Rez says, I'm glad to hear you bring this up. Yeah, so again, I don't want to get too preachy. The other thing I picked up today was 3 more issues of Our Fighting Forces, The Losers, which I'm really enjoying. I've read a few of the issues now. I think I've got 10. I kind of want to collect a whole big run right from the beginning of when they made their first appearance in Our Fighting Forces. I'm not a huge war comic guy, but I recently, well, not recently, it's been a few months now, I was watching a whole bunch of Sam Fuller's movies, and Sam Fuller did a lot of war movies, and I really, really enjoyed them. So it kind of puts me in that headspace. New Frontier had a big kind of homage to the Losers as well right at the beginning. And that's the other thing I bought yesterday. I picked up the new price guide because I do love looking through it. And again, another kind of heart-stopping moment. I probably won't be able to find it. It's one of those things, you think that some things don't have an impact on you, and artists and musicians dying don't normally have a huge impact on me. But as I've talked about before, Darwyn Cooke's passing had a surprising impact on me. It really did take me by surprise how that made me feel. And I see in the price guide, they had a really nice page. Here we go. It's probably getting a little dark in here, but they had a really great page, Darwyn Cooke. Never forgotten there, that I thought was really nice to see in there. So the Losers book, I'm kind of really digging, and I kind of want to check out some Nick Fury war comics as well too. The Howling Commandos war comics. I saw the shop that I was at today. They had a bunch of them, but they were in really, really rough shape. They were like $1 or $2 a piece, but they were really, really rough. Kind of want something that's held together a little more. So I may keep my eyes out for those at the convention. The convention is up on Sunday. This Sunday I'm going to the convention. It starts on Friday, but we usually go on Sundays. I have some free passes. My son has a couple of his friends coming to it as well, so we're going to go and spend quite a few hours there. I've got quite a list of books to pick up. My kind of funding that I've been saving for in the bank, I have a little bit of an account specifically for the convention, is up to a fair sum of change. So I'm looking forward to dropping every dime of that at the convention. There's quite a few books I want to look for. The Ditko Beware the Creeper series, I'd love to try to find. Couple of Daredevil books. I was going to look for some Doctor Strange stuff, but on second thought, now that the Doctor Strange movie is coming out, November the 4th, I don't think I'll be looking for any of those. I just have a feeling that this will be the exact time that all those the prices will be jacked up like nuts. I'll probably have a little dig through just to get a sense of the prices. I've been going through the price guides for just kind of some idea of the comics that I have sitting downstairs that I'm going to be selling at the next mini convention, but also just to give me a rough idea, that plus the internet, eBay, and that sort of things, a kind of price range that I can expect to find with some of the books on my very, very short want list for the comic convention. Some Daredevil stuff specifically, just to see what kind of price range I should be looking for, to see if how much higher or how much lower I find them. I doubt they'll be much lower. There's usually one huge online comic place that sets up at the convention, and they always every single year have a 50% off sale every single year, to try to just get rid of a bunch of their stock in their warehouse. And that's normally where I buy the bigger books from. And their prices have always been pretty good even before the 50% off discount. But this time I want to pay even closer attention. They've also got some sections there that aren't 50% off, but at the end of last year, I kind of looked through some of the other bins and I saw things like a Richard Corbin magazine and stuff that were not part of the 50% off sale, but it just kind of opened up this whole area of like, holy shit, you guys have got a lot of different things. So that may be the one place that I hit up for sure. I'm hoping that I find some underground comics as well too. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to going and digging through some comic bins and just kind of buying a little bit more bigger ticket items to kind of finish some runs in my collection. Specifically finishing, like there's 2 Daredevils that I want to get that will then kind of, I'll be complete from like 150 all the way to 300, I think, just missing 2 issues to get an entire run. One is Frank Miller's first issue, which is 158, I think. And the other one is Elektra's first appearance. What is that, 164 or something? I can't remember exactly, but I think those are the numbers. Those 2 specifically, which I know are not the cheapest of issues, but I'm hoping that I can find some deals there, which is also the thing about going on Sunday that we love. The amount of people that are there, it's a lot more manageable, especially dragging kids along with you. And then people just want to sell. They want to just not bring everything back into their cars and back to their houses, or to their storefronts or whatever. So they're more willing to give you deals just to get rid of some books. So fingers crossed for that, and I'm sure that I will have a video up about that. Other than that, I haven't really picked up anything. Tomorrow is new comic book day. Tomorrow is the new Mobius hardcover, which I'm pretty excited for. I don't know if I'll be able to actually buy it tomorrow. I'm hoping the shop has it. My shop that I go to, they're really good with holding stuff for me, though. So if they do have a hardcover, I might just kind of put it in my subscription box there and ask them to hold on to it for me till next weekend, or next Wednesday, rather. Yeah. That's about it, everybody. That's my ranting. That's my 2 cents. Thanks very much for everybody who came. Rob Wiseguy says, awesome. My shop may have it. Cool. If your shop does have that, that's great. But like I said, anybody who wants that Gord Downie book, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me on Twitter. I will gladly help you out with it and pick it up for you and send it out to you. Rez also says she's been picking up a lot of comics with covers by Darwyn Cooke. That's great. His art illustration style has always been some of my favorite. I know I've talked about it a million times, but especially when it came to like the Parker series that he did. I think the Parker series really reached a pinnacle in his kind of illustrative style. You can see the line work there is just, it's so fucking precise and on point. That's some of the work that he did that impressed me the most. And again, I mean, New Frontier was such a huge book for me when I first read that. Jay-Z is saying, is the Gord Downie comic only available in Winnipeg? I don't think so, but I know that a lot of people on YouTube are from the States, and some from overseas. And I know that, so I don't know what its availability is like even across the border. I don't know how easy it is to come across. So that's why I'm putting the offer out there as far as, I'm sure you can find it in the Hammer there, Jay-Z. I'd be surprised if you couldn't, because I think Gord Downie was from Ontario. He grew up kind of in your neck of the woods. I can't remember the town where he did grow up. Like I said, I was never a huge Tragically Hip fan, but I almost bought Into the Kitty Die, but passed. It looked cool. Yeah, there was a Cooke cover of that. I didn't see it at my shop. I saw it online. And Rez wants to do a convention so bad. They're fun. They're good and bad. This big one has a lot of, it has some good, but it also does have some bad. I mean, it does cost a fair bit to get in. I think on Sunday is the cheapest day, and I think it's still like $16.50 just for me to get in the door. For my daughter, who's not even 3 yet, it's free for her. For my son, I think it was, I don't remember how much it was last year, but it doesn't matter because this year I got some free passes from the comic shop. So he gets in for free. His buddies get in for free. I have 2 extra ones as well. So I'm hoping that I see some other people with kids in the line that I can just give it to them too, so they can get in for free. So the big convention is pretty fun for the most part. It's not really a comic convention. It's more like a pop culture convention. So there's lots of other kind of bullshit there that I'm not interested in. The Artist Alley thing is usually pretty good. I think I was saying to you already, Rez, that the guy who does Winterpeg is going to be there. Helly, I can't remember her last name. The woman that did the book that I sent you, she's going to be there as well too. Robert Pasternak will be there, kind of Winnipeg's original OG underground comics guy who I've bought things from before. Super, super nice guy. I'll probably go and kind of have a chat with all those people as well too and pick you up that Winterpeg. The mini convention is the one that I like more because it's all comics. It's all kind of dudes who are bringing comics from their basement. Most of the people don't have stores. They don't sell online. They just sell at the mini convention. The amount of books that are there and the guys that are there selling the books, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And as you all well know, I've really enjoyed selling at that convention too. And I can't wait for that next one because I have a lot of books that I think are just going to fly out of my basement. I've got a whole bunch of Amazing Spider-Man to sell at the next one, which I think are going to just get the hell out of my house really quick. I'm dying to have that Mobius in my hands. I agree with you. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the books that they put out. And Dr. Monkeybot says the Parker books are so damn gorgeous, and that is just completely true. If you do have a chance to see the Martini edition, I've got the Martini edition as well as all the first editions of like the smaller kind of graphic novels, the hardcovers. The Martini edition is just beautiful. It's like it's like a DC Absolute edition size, in a really, really nice slipcase, with a whole bunch of extras, with an interview with Darwyn Cooke about the making of the first Parker book, him talking to Richard Stark about it, and that sort of thing. It's a really, like, I'm a fan of the Parker books as well too, the novels. But I mean, he just, yeah, it's just fucking beautiful. Really, really beautiful, beautiful stuff. J-Rock says, Terrence, check out Book Depository. They sell hardcovers and you get up to 30% anywhere in the 30% off. I assume that means anywhere in the world. Those kind of places, when I've looked into them to the States, by the time the discount gets added to it, the amount that it costs me to ship kind of negates any discount. I'll check it out, the Book Depository. I don't think I've specifically checked out that one. I know that I've checked out a couple other ones, and it's just not worth it. My parents are going to Arizona in February, and they're going to be staying there for a couple of months. Laughing at Jay-Z there. And they're going to be staying there for a couple of months. So they were talking about getting a post office box. So I'm hoping that I can just completely flood their post office box with a bunch of cheap books that I can buy in the States. And they said that they would be glad to bring things back over the border for me. Johnny Zero says, okay, cool. I want to get a copy, but I figured I would see it this week. Oh shit, my comment is next. Funny stuff. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure that you can find it in the Hammer there. Book Depository does free shipping worldwide. I know Spiro uses them. Well, there you go. Book Depository is in the UK, and I get Books to USA for free shipping. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. That answers that question for me. Especially if Spiro uses them. Holy shit, because I think I get molested over shipping rates. That guy just gets fucking ravaged by shipping. I can't believe how much he has to pay for shipping to New Zealand. Now it's just me talking. So let's just call it quits. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in and sticking around and making some comments and listening to me blather on here. I appreciate every single one of you. I always have and I always will. And thank you very much for watching. We'll talk to you soon.